Lead 360 is a value add to any organization that is serious about cultivating its rising Black leaders. Specifically, Lead 360 provides tailor-made programming that exposes its young talent to skills and tools that are necessary for next level leadership. And it's intentional about making spaces for Black leaders to grow their networks in meaningful ways. Lead 360 also provides our rising leaders with the opportunity to be exposed to seasoned leaders who can speak directly to their unique experiences, offering nuggets of wisdom and guidance.
Lead 360 is an amazing organization. I think what the organization is doing really well right now is curating great learning experiences for Black talent in a way that it feels authentic when you're there. People can let their armor down and really learn from one another. And there's also the opportunity to learn from your peers in a cohort. So I think if I look at what Lead 360 is doing really well, it's really bringing people together, curating those great learning experiences, and also building a bridge for the future, most importantly.
I think the one thing about this program that has been, actually amazing today is, one, the networking, but two, the access to knowledge. The fact that a lot of this knowledge has not been offered to those outside of the senior leadership level. I think the one amazing thing about this program is it kind of opens the door a little bit and allows for us to share some of that knowledge to those other leaders that are not on the senior leadership level. And so this has been absolutely amazing. The opportunity to not only obtain some knowledge around board membership, but also the networking aspect to be able to meet others from several different companies. And as we know, the one strong thing about being able to expand or move your career forward is networking. And so having those two together has been absolutely outstanding. So I say that this is invaluable. And so I'm totally appreciative of the opportunity to be able to spend these 2 days here.
I am excited about the impact that Lead 360 has in the business community, and I look forward to working with and partnering with them in the future.
When I came up in my career, 25, 30 years ago, there weren't programs like this where you could come together with people like yourself and learn and stay connected and support each other on your career journey. And I just think that the best is yet to come for what Lead 360 is building.
A chief diversity officer is a change maker, is a risk taker, is a storyteller, and is oftentimes a therapist for the organization. What drives my personal mission in this work is the ability to make a real difference. I have a saying, I got it from my boss, fat cats don't hunt. And what that means is you've got to stay hungry. You've got to be aggressive. Opportunity is not going to fall into your lap. You have to go out and seek it and be ready when the opportunity presents itself.
I'm pretty loud. All right, so first people always say, what does the Chief Diversity Officer do? What is that job? It is a change maker, a risk taker, a storyteller, and it's a therapist, right, to the company. I did not grow up and be like, oh, I want to be the Chief Diversity Officer. I've been in the business, running a sales team, running sales and marketing, was in government affairs. And then we got a new CEO, and he said, well, I want to make diversity inclusion an important platform. So I was like, if you're looking for some Black figurehead to come up in here, then I'm not the one. But if you want to make some real change, then buckle up your seatbelt because it's about to get turbulent. And they were all like, yes, that's what we want. And so that's what we've been getting. And so for us at Genentech, we say we embrace the increasingly diverse world around us. And we have kind of 3 pillars to our strategy. We have foster belonging, advancing inclusive research and health equity, which is near and dear to my heart. And then we have transform society. Most of the time when diversity and inclusion is in HR, it's about representation. And representation does not bring people on board. Representation is like, oh, they're about to take my seat with some unqualified person. And we all know that nobody black who gets that seat is unqualified. They're usually overqualified. So it's a fake narrative that we have to dispel. And so for us, we wanted to have a broad strategy, right? Like I'm coming from the business and I want a strategy that delivers results. We need to treat diversity and inclusion like any other part of the business. And so under Foster Belonging, these are our commitments, and our commitments are on our website. Because what we don't want is we don't want to have them in secret, right? We don't want nobody to know, right? We want everybody to know, because when everybody knows that you have transparency, right, then you can be held accountable. Then when the reporters say, well, how you doing, Quita, on your goals, I can say, well, this is what we're doing. And it keeps the organization honest. So for one, we want a double Black and Hispanic representation in our officers and director population. We need to move people up into more leadership roles versus being the workforce. We also have a large Asian population. We're in San Francisco, so we have a large Asian population, but that has not manifested into leadership roles. And there's a lot of what I call fake news. So fake news says that there ain't no qualified Black people. Fake news says there ain't no qualified Hispanics, right? And we know that's not true. And what we have to do, what I tell the people who are coming all the time, we need to stop trying to hire for cultural fit. Cultural fit keeps the status quo going. We need to hire for cultural addition, right? Who's missing? We still have pockets where there are in the medical directors, in our engineers, and some of our scientists where we don't have equal representation between men and women. So we do want to continue there. And then under advanced inclusive research, we want all our molecule teams to include population assessments. And here's why. In 2017, when I was leading patient advocacy and government affairs, I was trying to put together a patient summit for the organization. And I was like, well, let me bring in some Black and Hispanic patients that have participated in the study. We could not find one Black or Hispanic patient that had participated in the clinical study that would be, would be able to come. And I started to ask a bunch of questions. Well, why is this? Then I started to look around at the data, right? The data's our friend. 94% of the people in the multiple sclerosis study that we had just got approved, white. And I started to say, well, why is that? And they were like, oh, well, they don't want to participate. Again, more fake news. And I started to challenge the organization and say, well, if we want to do better, we've got to think differently. Because right now, what it says to me is we're setting up studies to get the results that we want, right? And what are those results? We want to have white Europeans in the study. We want to understand them, and we don't care about other people. They're like, no, cute, that's not true. Prove it. If that's not the case, then let's do better. And so we've been making a number of changes and initiatives. We now have a multiple sclerosis study that's going to be closing up at the end of this year. 100% of the study participants are Black or Hispanic. During COVID, we did a study called Impacta that had 85% of the study participants came from communities of color. And here's the funny part. So we have 85%, right? We go to Kenya, Mexico, Brazil, Navajo Nation, Jamaica, Queens, Howard. The same people who were like, oh, but the studies are fine. When we have 85% of the study participants that are Black, Hispanic, others, and only 15% white, the question we get asked was, is it gonna work in white people? But you wasn't asking that question when it was 6% everybody else and 94% white patients. And so we have to be thinking about the increasingly diverse world around us, right? We all know the demographics are changing. And I think COVID was really shined a bright light on two things: health equity, the lack of access that patients of color had, as well as it busted a lot of fake news myths. Fake news that Black people, Hispanic people don't want to participate in clinical trials. We have to put our money where our mouth is as well. We are annually committing to spend $1 billion with diverse suppliers. Because here's the rub, right? Like if you go to the same old companies that are owned by those that always had the privilege of working with corporate America, the other people never get a chance, right? And so we have committed to ensuring that when we talk to suppliers, we're asking them a number of questions. One, we want to know, are more than 50% owned by Black, Hispanic, LGBTQ, veteran? But also, what awards have you won? So if you want to get an award with Genentech that's over $500,000 when we do our request for proposals, we're asking you, who's going to work on the Genentech business? How diverse are those people going to be? What awards have you won? And we want to see what goals you have. So when we first started this, about 60% of the suppliers had diversity metrics goals and was able to share that with us. We're now looking at 93% of all the vendors that we work with actually have D&I goals in place for the organization, because if we're going to transform society, it can't just be within the walls of Genentech. We have to be thinking broadly about who has a seat at the table. And then we have another initiative that we call Kindergarten to Careers. And I'm super excited about this because this is about the next generation. And many people don't know that there's an opportunity in the biotech space to participate, and I mean, it is great money, let me be honest. So we need people to understand that this is a career path for you. And I'm happy to report that our postdocs, we went from 7% when we put this in place in 2020 to now we're over 16% of our postdocs, PhDs that are Black or Hispanic. Our intern population is almost 25%. We've got a number of initiatives with historically Black colleges and universities. And so we're trying to make an impact to bring in the future so that when people say, well, we can't find no qualified people, we're like, oh no, baby, we got the next generation already ready to raise their hand and take their seat. The other thing I would say on talent acquisition, we have a new agency, a Black-owned agency that is going to be helping us with our talent marketing, and so then that's one of the reasons why we have our ad, so that we can begin to be engaging with communities of color on our own terms. What questions do you have?
First of all, thank you. That's really inspirational. One question I had, which really kind of just sparked me, like a lot of companies are very sensitive around their data and both diversity and even sharing internally. From looking at your presentation, not only are you sharing internal data externally, but you're also sharing your business. What did you have to do to kind of drive that conversation where there's such a fearful perspective?
First, what we did was we started with the data internally. And so we started with just the officers, the VPs of the company, and then it was like, okay, well, what happened? You know, stuff started to improve. Then we released it to all our employees once a year internally. And then we was like, well, what happened? You know, stuff started to improve. And then when we set the goals, I was like, at some point, we're going to have to tell the truth, right? We're going to have to be transparent. If we want to move the needle and have people take us seriously, then we're going to have to share, because we have to keep ourselves honest, right? Like, that's the only way we drive accountability. The other thing that we do with the data now is, now we give it out annually on the website and into our broad Genentech population, which is about 14,000 employees. But on a quarterly basis, we give all of the vice presidents their data. The other thing that we show in this data is retention numbers. And you know, at the beginning, the Black people was running out the door. And so, like, you know, if you think about a bathtub, we were bringing people in, but the drain was open, and so people were leaving. And so we did a survey, what we call an inclusion survey, to understand some of these dynamics. And basically, there's a certain person who looks like a leader at the company. Now, I'm not one of them, right? Because they are like white male, 6'2", right? Like there's all these characteristics. So if you don't see yourself, you're like, why am I gonna stay here? Because I'm not gonna have a chance to climb the corporate ladder. And so we really started to help the organization understand that we've gotta open up, because right now we have an echo chamber of who gets to be a leader in the organization. And so, but you know, my very presence, right? Natural hair, not real black, right? My very presence in the C-suite. So every time somebody comes up to see the CEO or whatever, they see the whole beautiful Chief Diversity Office team up in there. Because I'm like, we need to be seen and heard. So when anybody comes up here, they understand we're here too. So my very presence, right, allows people to see themselves, and we're starting to see much better retention in the organization. So it was a journey. It was about a 4-year journey from, you know, initially giving the data to just the officers, to then the employees, to then open it up to now the officer community receiving data on a quarterly basis so that we can action up. As far as like transparency, is all of our officers, so we have about 150, like most senior people, all of them have their own individual diversity and inclusion plan. And that plan is published on our intranet for any employee in the company to see. So for each of our 3 pillars, we gave them 10 actions that they can do. So one might be, I'm gonna bring in a fellow or our intern, you know, Black or Hispanic intern into my organization. I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. So we gave them 10 in each bucket and said, you can choose 2 and up to 5. And it was really like eye-opening, because once people knew what they could do, like what can I do so I can work on diversity and inclusion, we really started to see some traction. And I think once we published it on the intranet, so any employee in the company could see what their department head said that they were gonna do, people do ask them questions. They'd be like, well, you said you was gonna do this, what you doing? Right? And so like at every town hall, it's the best. I love it. Because that type of visibility and accountability is important. And then when you have 150 people all working on something that they chose, right? It's not necessarily, like we have these 8 commitments that are our company commitments, but each officer has their own individual commitments that they are doing. And we're in the process now of they're evaluating how did they do and working on their 2023 plan. Because it can't just come from the Chief Diversity Office, right? It can't just be me saying, we've got to work on these things. We need everyone, and so many times diversity and inclusion is at the grassroots, right? It's the employee resource groups. They're like, we need to do this, we need to do that. But I'm like, no, we need the top to also be doing the work. And signaling to the organization that it is important for each of us to be doing this work. And so I've been excited about the reaction of the officer community to kind of have their own plan and own it. I think you had a question.
Yes, I did. So there's a mindset shift that's needed, right, to get to the point where you are today, publishing the data, etc.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to how it is that you were able to go through some of those roadblocks to get to where you are today.
The top person has got to have your back. And then I think the second area, and then I think the next level of leadership, the area that is the most challenging is what I call the frozen middle. That's the like middle management. They hire one person. You know what I mean? They got like 10 people on the team, they hire one person, or they got 30 people, and they're the ones who are like, oh, this is political, I believe in this, right? That's the group that can derail you. when you're trying to make change, because you got the grassroots people, the individual contributors. They're like, guys, we need to do more. We got the leadership saying, you know what, it's time. We're going to embrace the increase. It's the middle management. They may only hire 1 or 2 people in a whole year, right? But if 2,400 people are hiring 1 or 2 people in a whole year, that's 4,000 people that potentially could be coming into the organization. And so now what we've done is anybody who participates in the interview panel has got to go through unconscious bias training, and then they have to take like a 30-minute inclusive interviews.
As far as for the leaders, you have the goals, and those I think are at the right place, and you all are doing a lot of good work. But are there incentives for those that are doing a good job at this?
So for us, we're looking at a goal around the research, because that's to me, if I'm going to be able to get a goal, it has to be about the business of Genentech, right? And the representation around the patient population, because that is going to be sustainable through eternity, right? Because we care about everybody at Genentech is paid because if we, deliver on our research, come up with new cancer medicine, and then people have access to it. So right now what we're seeking to do is a research goal that is more representative of the patient population. And I believe that the company is coming along that journey versus if I do a representation goal.
Would love to hear how you think about the skills on your team and how you design that.
Yeah.
Because you're innovating there. And then the second question is your interaction with the board. Like, how are you influencing them, bringing them along? Are they influencing you? How does that work?
I have been very fortunate with our board. It's been really good. Yeah, but you gotta prepare for the board, right? So I started working on that presentation and driving people nuts 2 months out, because you gotta be tight, because this is your chance to get the resources and the funding that is needed to do the work, because we have to have resources to do diversity and inclusion work. It can be a volunteer thing. It doesn't work. I always say you budget what you value, right? So if diversity and inclusion is valuable to you, you will have a team. We've got about 30 people on our team. We have a budget that rivals any marketing budget. So I'm not having to be out here handling, asking other departments. No, I'm not doing that. We are telling them what to do, and we are doing the funding. I told the interview team, I'm like, we're looking for change makers. We're looking for risk takers. I'm looking for somebody who's gonna bring me some ideas that might get me fired, right? Because if we continue to do the same old thing, we're gonna have the same old results. And so I like people that challenge the status quo, because I think in diversity and inclusion, if you go along to get along, it won't change, right? We're battling uphill systems and processes that have been implemented for hundreds of years, right? And so I need people to help us think about how do we really challenge the status quo and do it from a data perspective, because the data does a lot.
What drives my personal mission in this work is the ability to make a real difference. Now that I have this seat at the table, now that I have this platform, I have to use this platform, especially in healthcare. Genentech is considered the founder of the biotech industry, and as such, we have a responsibility to demonstrate real leadership when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, because we know that if we get this right, we're going to drive more innovation to help patients. We should not be dealing with the same pain and struggles that previous generations dealt with. And so we have the opportunity to really start to challenge how we're all thinking about health inequalities and what can we do to be part of the solution. I have what I call my board of directors, and this is trusted advisors that I have known throughout my career. That's what I see the WIN Academy being able to provide to those that are participating. It gives them an opportunity and a safe space to have conversation and to talk about career challenges, but also career opportunities. We all know the demographics are changing and the next level of leaders are right now within our midst. Oftentimes, Black and Hispanic talent don't have the opportunities and the visibility and the seat at the table that they need. And what the work that Dr. Walton is doing with Lead 360 and the WIN Academy is creating a new future, a future that is more inclusive, a future that is bringing more diverse, talented leaders to the top. And I applaud him for these efforts.
Here's an opportunity for you to reevaluate how you're thinking about the development of your talent within your organization, specifically your African American and Black talent. There's much research and data that informs us that by 2030, the landscape of talent will look completely different. And the question becomes, are you harnessing the talent that you have now in preparation for the tsunami that's approaching? And if you're not, it's a good time to take a step back and engage with Lead 360 around how you might begin to look at that differently.